And we're live.
Hi, folks. Welcome. Saturday night.
Wow. We have 242 already. That's a lot for just starting out.
Is it? Welcome, all 242. Nice to have you here. This is our bi-monthly. Is that how you would say it? Is bi-monthly twice? Bi-weekly?
Yeah.
It's our bi-weekly YouTube Live that we do in support of the Purple Heart Project. If you're not sure what that is, see all this stuff behind me. 6 times a year, starting in April, once each month, we do a 6-day, very intense hand tool workshop where we train 7 civilian students that come as paying customers and 7 combat wounded veterans who come as our guests. And we train them on fundamental hand tool skills. The idea is to learn how to freehand sharpen planes, chisels, saws, how to dimension a piece of lumber from its rough state to being flat, smooth, and square on all 6 surfaces with hand tools only. You learn how to use chisels, so you learn how to cut dovetails. You learn how to cut mortise and tenon joints. You learn a couple variations of dovetails and a couple of variations of mortise and tenon joints. So you pick up enough skill with those primary tools, saws, planes, and chisels, that you can actually build a piece of furniture with just hand tools. The vets that come are combat wounded, meaning they have suffered either a physical or a mental wound on the battlefield. As a result of that, in most cases, they've been medically retired, but we still have some that are active duty. As a service to them, we cover all their expenses. Every vet takes home in US dollars approximately $4,000 worth of premium tools. So in large part, what you see behind me, I'll just point out real quick, we send them home with a number 6, this plane. We send them home with a 4.5. We send them home with a low-angle low-angle block plane, a medium shoulder plane. They take a selection of chisels, a dovetail saw, a crosscut saw, a mortise, and a tenon saw, lots of various marking tools, full set of stones, all kinds of stuff, tons of stuff. Plus, thanks to the bench brigade that we're going to talk a little bit more about tonight, a volunteer will build them a bench to our specs and deliver it to their home so that they have a bench to be theirs to work on so they can continue this. We're going to give you some really interesting stats tonight on how well that bench brigade has been doing. And let's have a question. Tonight's topic, there's more to tell you, but I'm going to give it to you a little bit at a time. You all right? Moose. He's looking for something. Frick, our topic tonight is bandsaws. So, Frick, throw one at me, please. Not a bandsaw.
No. First question comes from Gary Gibbons in Marysville, Washington State.
Hi, Gary. I don't know where Marysville, but I know Washington State. I've been there numerous times.
How do you coil...
Jake, excuse me 1 second. Do you want help? Go ahead. Sorry.
How do you coil short and long bandsaw blades?
How do you coil them? Well, Let me show you. That's a good question. I have to walk out of the camera for a minute to pick up a blade. I thought I saw one here, right here, underneath Frick's meal.
Don't spill it.
All right, this is brand new. So there's your blade as it goes on, your bandsaw. You always want to make sure the teeth are cutting down, and every once in a while it'll be inside out. So if it's inside out, and if it goes on like this, and the bandsaw goes in this direction, the teeth should be pointing down. If they're not, if they're pointing up, which on occasion has happened, and you go over to put your bandsaw on, and I'll say, well, what's going on? So all you have to do is just turn it inside out. So just take it and flip it around. There you go. Pretty easy. So here's how you coil it. This is how Dale Nish taught me how to do it. So stand on it, and then just take your wrist and spin it around like that while you drop it down. And if you want to coil it even tighter, this is one of those things where I can do it, but I can't always explain how I did it. It's like that breakaway I had the other day.
Can't remember that.
So if you take it and do it again, you can take it down to an even tighter coil. Did you see that? So hold your foot on it. There's your loop. Take it like that, and then turn it while you're pushing it down like that, and you just kind of let it do what it's want, and it'll fold itself right up. And that makes it a heck of a lot easier to manage them. There you go. Next question.
Next one comes from Todd in Leakesdale, Ontario.
Hey, Todd.
Have you ever tried lateral guide bearings versus guide blocks, and is there any advantage in paying for the upgrade?
Say that. Okay, just a second now. Lateral guide bearings
Yep, versus
instead of guide blocks.
Yep.
So I bought my first set of, they're made by, who's the company? Jake, what's the name of the company? Carter Bearings. I'm sure you can check it out, probably just Carter.com. Company that makes all kinds of accessories for bandsaws. So what he's asking is, can I take this out? Will this come out, Jake? The answer is no. It went in there somehow, but I don't know how it's going to come out. I can't get it out, sorry. I'll get Jake. Can you gonna come over a little closer? The guides. I know, you have to pick up the camera.
Well, I'm telling you.
What are you telling me?
By the time I put it on, what are you going to do for the next 2 minutes? Sit there and watch me?
Oh, that. You got to get dressed. So let me explain. The guides are the really important part of your bandsaw. The guides, there's two in the top and there's two in the bottom. And what they prevent is they prevent the blade from twisting. If you're trying to cut a curve in your bandsaw, you want the blade to stay put. You don't want the blade to move. If the blade moves, then you're going to lose your accuracy because it's going to twist like that as you're turning the wood. So the guides, these ones are cool blocks. So they're just some kind of a composite that wears well, meaning it doesn't wear. And you tighten all of that up. You have the blade in between them. The face of the, this front face of the guide sits at the bottom of the gullet. So if you look at a bandsaw blade, I think we can get this in. If you look at a bandsaw blade, the teeth, am I close enough to be able to see? Rick, can I get closer?
Well,
So there's the gullet. The gullet's the narrowest point in the blade. So when you want your guides to be right at the base of the gullet. So they're holding on as much of the blade as possible without interfering with the set, because these teeth, just like on any saw, are bent. One's bent one way, the other bent the opposite way, so that it actually cuts a kerf wider than the blade so it doesn't jam in there. You don't want to destroy that or interfere with that set, so your guides have to be at the base of the gullet. And you want them to be essentially touching so that there's as much support as possible to keep the blade from twisting when you are making turns. So over the years, they've had that bandsaw that I have over there. We'll try to get a look at it when Jake's gets built here. It has steel blocks. They came out with these ones that are called cool blocks. I think that's actually a brand name, and they're a composite that just runs cool and wears well. But they also make bearings. So instead of having two blocks, stationary blocks that sit on either side of your blade, they have two bearings that run like this. And I thought, oh, they would be perfect. So I bought them. I think the bandsaw that I had them on was an old 16-inch Walker Turner, which was a really good bandsaw built in the 50s. But what I discovered, we use a lot of pine here as a secondary wood. and as a result, it has a lot of pitch in it. And what would happen is the pitch would build up on the blade and on the sides of the bearing, and it would just make a mess. You'd have to go in there all constantly scraping it off. I got to the point where I actually took those off and put the cool blocks back on. I much preferred them. So depending on the material that you're using, if it has a tendency to stick to the blade, I would not do that. The cool blocks acts as almost like scrapers to keep the blade clean, whereas these bearings that are running like this just keep munching it on there and caking it all up. And oh, fine, it was a disaster. So I've used cool block. I've used bearings, had them for a long time. I've used the ceramic guides. I had a what was the brand name, Jake? Laguna. I had a Laguna 18-inch bandsaw for several years. It had ceramic guides, and I'm back to using cool blocks, and I like them. I think they're the best choice I've found. Next, Frick.
This one comes from Tertius Olivier in South Africa.
How are you pronouncing his name?
I don't want to butcher it. Mr. Olivier, we'll say.
Mr. Olivier?
Yeah, in Southeast South Africa.
Southeast South Africa, Mr. Olivier.
South Africa. He says, I have a 14-inch bandsaw, but don't use it a lot, and was told when I bought it secondhand that I need to release the tension of the blade if the saw is not in use. Is this standard practice, or can one leave it tensioned? Actually, I'm going to repeat that because my microphone was on mute. He says that he has a 14-inch bandsaw blade, doesn't use it a lot. When he bought it secondhand, they told him to release the tension of the blade if it's not in use. Is this a standard practice, or can one leave it tensioned?
That would be a wise decision to take the tension off if you're not using it. Ours get used all the time, so we don't bother. The problem with leaving the tension on is you're going to put you risk creating a little bit of a flat spot in your tire. The bandsaw wheel itself has a rubber tire on it. And that rubber tire is obviously designed to grip, but it also protects the blade. You wouldn't want the blade actually running on a steel wheel. And there's a little bit of a crown in your wheel, and that crown is what keeps the blade centered so it doesn't run off one way or the other. And if you're going 6 months, yeah, I suppose even if you're going 3 months without using it, take the tension off. It's just going to preserve things a little bit. Like I said, ours get used enough that the blades, I mean, we're changing blades every month or so just because they get that much use. And we have, how many bandsaws do we have? We've got a 20-inch General over there. You'll see at some point. We've got a 20-inch General over there. We just got this one. This is a really interesting one because this is a both metal and wood. So it has two different speed options. It can turn very slowly, like about that speed for metal, and then a lot faster for wood. We've got two of those. One's a General, one's a Rockwell, and we have at least 3 General 15-inch bandsaws.
I think it's just 3.
Yeah, and we've got a 20-inch Rockwell that's a really nice machine and the only reason we're going to sell it is because rather than have 2 different size blades, we got a 20-inch General here and a 20-inch General in the other shop, so we're using the same equipment, same blades. Yes, I would release the tension. Next, Rick.
Next one comes from Dale Scott in Amherstburg, Ontario.
Hey, Dale.
He says, how do you set up your bandsaw to resaw boards? My blade tends to wander and not cut straight.
Okay, I actually did a YouTube on this not that long ago. Was it a YouTube that we did? Or a newsletter? I think it was a YouTube. So a couple of things. You want to if you're resawing, I have a friend, Dave, that used to do the wood show circuit. And his expertise was in power tools. And he said, if you're going to resaw a lot, in case you don't understand what I mean by resaw, if I took a piece of wood like this and I wanted multiple thin pieces, I would resaw it, or I would saw it down through there, and I could take as many pieces as I want. So you're taking a relatively heavy cut. That would actually be considered narrow. Sometimes you may be cutting through a board that's that wide. If you're going to be resawing a lot, as soon as you start to make turns on your bandsaw, you're wearing the set on the outside of the curve. So now your blade's not going to cut true like it did. So save that one blade just for resawing. You want a coarse tooth, meaning 2 or 3 teeth per inch, so that you've got lots of clearance. Remember, if you're dragging a blade down through 6 inches of wood, that tooth can only cut as long as there's some place for the sawdust to go. And the sawdust is filling up in the gullet. So when the gullet fills up, the tooth can't cut anymore. It's like jamming up the throat of your plane. There's no place for the shaving to go. It can't cut anymore. So fewer teeth, bigger the gullet, faster it's going to cut. Yeah, widths. I mean, we've resawed with 1/4 inch, but if you want a really dedicated resaw blade, I would go 1/2 inch at least, maybe even 3/4, possibly even 1 inch wide. And that's going to give you a lot of steering, or what we would call tracking, helping the saw to cut nice and straight. So sharp blade, wide, heavy tooth count. You need a saw that's powerful enough. You know, if you're trying to resaw through 12-inch lumber, well, actually, I don't have the capacity on this one. I think you've only got maybe 6 inches. Yeah. You've got to have the capacity. The motor's got to be able to pull that blade through. So you need the capacity. If your blade is set up, if your bandsaw is set up nicely, you may just be able to automatically cut parallel to the fence without having to make any adjustment. What I used to do is take a set the machine up, take a pen, piece of wood that had parallel sides, draw a line, and then start running that through the bandsaw. And I want to stay to the right or to the left of the line, and I'm just going to keep cutting and cutting and cutting until I determine the angle of attack that keeps that blade cutting parallel to that line. So I may be cutting perfectly parallel to the blade. I may happen to be a little bit on an angle one way or the other. And when you finally get exactly what you want, meaning I'm pushing it through and that blade is staying true to that line, stop, shut the machine off, and then note the angle that is. And then I would set my fence up parallel to that, because that has established the angle of attack for me, clamp my fence in place, and now I should be able to resaw. And you know it's right if, when you take your two pieces apart, it's equally, the surface quality on both sides is the same. If it's really rough on one side, not on the other, then your teeth are digging in more on one side than the other. So that's the easiest way. Go and check out my YouTube video where we set up the bandsaw to actually do that. But that was taught to me by Monroe Robinson back in 1987. I worked as his assistant at Anderson Ranch Arts Center in Aspen, Colorado. And that was a really valuable lesson, because not all bandsaws are going to cut parallel to the rip fence just as it's set. You're going to have to go in there and make a little adjustment like that. And you want to keep enough tension on the blade too. Remember, when you're pulling, making that heavy cut, there's a lot of pull on that blade. You want to have the blade appropriately tensioned. And I wish I could give you a magical way. The guides on most bandsaws to determine the tension, I don't think they work at all. So you get a feel for it. Some people can tell just by the tone or the key when you ping the blade. I can't. I just kind of get a feel. That's not a very good answer, but that's the best I can do on that one. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Farmer John in the chat.
Farmer John.
Farmer John.
Where's Farmer John from?
Well, we'll find out. But he wants to know if there's precision ground aftermarket bandsaw tables that are larger than what typically comes with the bandsaw.
Precision ground bandsaw tables. I've never heard of any, but I would just make one out of a piece of 1-inch MDF, whatever you need. I'm not sure why you need a precision ground. I've never considered a bandsaw to be a final cut. I know David Charlesworth used to cut his dovetails on the bandsaw, and he used a meat cutting blade, and I think he may have even adjusted the set. But typically a bandsaw is going to be like a table saw. A table saw is never my final cut. it gets it close. You always go in with a hand plane to finish it. Bandsaw is going to get it close, but it's not going to give you a nice smooth cut. It just doesn't operate that way. Before I go any more, I want to give a little more background as to what we're doing. So when we do our Purple Heart project, each year we bring in 42 combat wounded vets. So last year we had one come from Ireland, Zach. We had one come from Denmark, Casper. I read his posts all the time. We had, I guess those were the two from away. The rest were from various points in the United States and some from Canada. This year we have one coming from Australia. I think that's the only far one that I know of so far. The rest are coming from various points of the United States and Canada. We've had one come from Hawaii. So it's expensive. Airfare has risen dramatically. And of course, it's an expensive venture. It'll cost us somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000 to do this. And if you would like to participate, if you would like to give back to these guys and be part of this, you can do that. You can make a donation. We are now a 501c3, so we can issue tax receipts. We are a legitimate nonprofit in the U.S. We're working on the same status for Canada. That'll happen sometime this year, I'm pretty sure. And it's much appreciated. These guys are worth it, and anything we can do for them is owed. So if you want, do that. And we're going to give away prizes. So at the end of the night, we tally up how much we've received, and for every $1,000, we're going to give away a prize. The prizes come from combat wounded vets that have started woodworking businesses, and we buy their product from them and then give it away as gifts, and we pay full retail to them to help them out in their business. And one of them is actually the wife of one of our combat wounded vets. Her name is Kim. And as I said, any wife that has stuck through with her husband through the horrors of war, if he's got a Purple Heart, she probably deserves two. Don't think I'm stepping out of line saying that. And I'll tell you more about Kim because she's starting something called the Yellow Ribbon Foundation, and that is all about helping the spouses of combat wounded vets. And her husband Jeff is getting ready to start a nonprofit to help give exposure to some of these combat wounded vets around the country who are starting businesses as a means of both feeding themselves and the therapy that comes through craft work. It's the reason why we do it. And Kevin Burris, who is another vet that is part of our group, Kevin does all of the laser engravings on stone, and Kev's setting up his own foundation. He's moving to Oklahoma, and his will be done through outdoor activities. So a lot more to come on those three as it progresses. And I'll show you some of the prizes a little bit later. Luther's on tonight.
He is.
Big shout out to Luther. Colonel Luther Sheely, retired, he's the one that set up the 501c3. He's my right-hand man in this. And he and Super Dave. So Luther takes care of the first three classes. So he comes up and works as my... What? Who's Luther? Is Luther first three, last three? Last three. Super Dave, David Benson, 17 years, Army and Navy. Spent the last half of his career in the Navy. Was injured, severely injured over in Afghanistan. Came to our class in 2017, ended up coming to work for us. And Super Dave takes care of the first three classes, so that's 21 of the vets. And then Luther takes care of the last three classes, so both of them actually come here and work as my assistant for the week. Super Dave on?
I haven't seen him.
He's been skipping out. Talk to him, Jake.
Where is my mic on?
Go ahead and give me another question.
Okay, this one comes from the chat from JLM. He says, can you explain how you added a dust collection system to your Delta bandsaw?
My Delta. I didn't have a Delta. Well, oh, that. Sorry, we just bought this. We've only had it a week. So it came like this, it was used. So I can take this off and show you. It's a bit of overkill, meaning I don't think you need a 5-inch port. It looks like they've, thanks to Al. Is Al on? Who's watching for the vets? Can Chris do that?
Sure, Chris can.
Well, you got to give him a computer.
We're short.
Huh?
We're short on computers.
Where's Jake's laptop?
Al is on my laptop.
Al's on. So Al McNeil is, Al works here 2-3 days a week. Al's retired Canadian Army tank commander, Lord Strathcona's. And Al's area of expertise is machinery. So I buy these old machines, Al takes them and refurbishes them, changes bearings, makes new parts when they're broken, and then cleans them all up. So it looks like what they have done is they simply cut a hole out of the inside of this cover, and then I assume it's been welded on. No, it's not. What is that, Jake?
It's just that. I'm pretty sure
Some
it's
kind of a
like-
compound, that stuff that you use on the duck?
It looks
Yeah.
like.
So that's just, the only reason I wouldn't want that is because it makes, if you can imagine having this, that's got to be fed by a pipe or even an elbow. It's just kind of in the way. I did a YouTube. If Luther can find it, he'll put a link to it. That put we used a piece of 1.5-inch pipe right in here that went around, that literally was closed on the end. It was surrounded the blade, and it was the absolute best for sucking all the dust right at the point where it was being released. In fact, you'd run it for half an hour, and you'd open this up, and there'd be nothing in there. It literally captured all of it. And you could run it off a vacuum cleaner. The problem with doing something this big is you've got to have a lot of CFM, a lot of air moving in order to make an effective dust collection. So we have a new guest tonight. His name is Royce. Royce, what's his middle name?
Eric.
Royce Eric.
Just Eric.
Eric Wetmore. This is frickin' Erica's newest baby. This is son number 5, baby number 5. Little pork chop, red as a beet.
Just Eric.
And Frick's,
Recovering nicely.
yes, Frick's playing Mr. Mom.
Get asleep.
They homeschool their kids, so they've been enjoying an extended vacation, but that's coming to an end real soon. Hey, Royce? Not terribly interested. If it's not milky white, he's not interested. All right. Thank you, Royce. We didn't bring our dog down tonight.
Yeah,
Oh, is he? Okay, he can come over and say hi, too. It's our new shop dog. I'll tell you the story about it when he comes. Anyway, so that's the dust collection for there. Check out that. Hopefully Luther can find that link, because that was the best idea we've had in terms of. Why did we do that? Because we were cutting swanstone. Yeah. So when we make the handles for our saws, the dust from it is just terrible, and any of it smelling in the air would make me want to vomit. So we came up with this idea, and it literally would capture all the dust from it. It was really, really effective. And like I said, because it was small diameter, it could be running off of a vacuum cleaner, and you wouldn't miss anything. Are we going to be able to get another question while he's?
I got one right here.
Oh.
So TH from the chat said that he
Your
has
microphone
a,
working?
Yeah, he has an old General 14-inch bandsaw, but it's missing the thrust bearing. How essential is it?
Oh, you have to have a thrust bearing. So on your bandsaw, Jake, you going to pick that thing up so we can?
Yeah.
On your bandsaw, pause.
Just tell them.
Okay, there's a bearing behind the blade. When you push your
Top and bottom.
thank you. When you push into the blade's going to want to go back. There has to be something to stop it. So what it does, it rides on the side of this bearing. You can see it spin. There's one in the top and there's one down here on the bottom. So if that wasn't there, number one, that would allow your bandsaw to get into your guides, and that's going to ruin the set on your teeth. So when this is properly set up and running, the blade shouldn't be touching this, but it's literally just, as soon as you put a piece of wood into it, it then makes contact and this will start to spin. But it cannot allow that blade to go beyond the base of the gullet on the bandsaw blade. So yeah, you got to have it, and it's a replaceable thing. So he's missing. Oh yeah, you could get that made easily. It's just a piece of steel with a hole drilled in the end, and it's tapped. You could get that fabricated without a problem. Highly doubt.
He said he was missing the bearing. He didn't.
Oh, the bearing. Well, the bearings go on the not regularly, but the bearings get clogged up and you got to replace them. But that's all off the shelf stuff. You can buy that anywhere. Anybody who sells bearings, you'll be able to get bearings like that. And get I think you want a sealed one. Can you use a sealed one? Maybe you can't. Because where does the blade doesn't run right out on the edge? The blade runs on the side of the race. So a bearing has a race on the outside, it's got bearings inside, and it's got an inside race. And usually there's a cover on there to keep dust out because they're permanently lubricated. So when your bandsaw is on there, it's running about 1/8 of an inch in from the outside edge. So as long as the dust cover is sitting inside of the race, you'd be fine. And there's I can see the numbers right off of there.
Might not be the same.
No, it wouldn't be the same, but I mean, it's standard off-the-shelf stuff. So I'm going to introduce you to, what's her name?
Maple.
Maple? It is Maple? It's not Honey?
She responds to me.
She responds to Maple. So here's the story. We had a little dog named Maggie. Maggie was an Australian...
I'll show everyone how you saw her.
Australian mini... What?
Miniature golden doodle.
Miniature golden... How come she's all wet?
Should I tell you?
Oh.
Feet on herself?
Wonderful. Australian miniature dander doodle or golden doodle. And Maggie was a really had a nice temperament. So when we were teaching actually she'd hang around here all the time because she lived upstairs with Rex and my daughter Kenzie. So when they were at work, she'd be down here. And she would just meander through the shop, never bothered anybody, but she knew when to get her treats. When the vets were here, she would come in and she would just show up at the right time and she would just rub up against their leg and they'd stop for a second and pat her. And numerous of them in their reviews afterwards would mention how comforting the dog was. It just always seemed to show up at the right time. Well, Kenzie moved to Alberta to study to be an equine therapist. So the dog went with her, even though it wasn't her dog. So we thought, oh, we should have another dog for this class. So this is Maple.
Just a golden doodle.
Just a golden doodle, not a miniature.
Mini.
Miniature golden doodle. And she's how old?
11 weeks.
11 weeks. And she'll get how much bigger? About twice the size?
Yeah, she'll come up to like mid-calf.
Mid-calf, so she's a small dog. But she's getting introduced to the shop. She should be ready by April. You want to have a closer look? Say hi, Maple. Say hi, Maple. She's got a little white on the top, and she's got a little white down here on her chest. And this is Annika. Annika's our miracle daughter. 2 months ago, she was using a walker. Now she's making dinner. And that's Frick.
There was a smudge.
Smudge?
There's a smudge.
All right, next question. I can't wait to have Luther come talk to Maple. How would he do that, Jake?
I refuse to repeat it.
Talk about turning an otherwise normal human into a
Wow. Low
Babbling.
standard for normal.
babbling brook. Okay, any other vets to talk to? Who's watching that?
Maybe Gina could watch it.
Is
She's
Gina on?
She is, yeah, and then she
Good.
can send me a list.
Gina, so if you're a combat wounded vet that has been to one of our classes, there's about 150 of you out there, we would love to say hello to you and acknowledge that you're on there. Brings a smile to our face. So just in this comment section, put @Gina and then your name and where you're from and what class you were in. And then she'll alert us, and every once in a while we'll stop, and I guess she's going to text Jake or Frick. Somebody say it so she knows what to do.
Text me, I can read them.
Okay, so Gina, if you'll text Frick, and then we'll stop and say howdy. Okay, time for a question, Frick.
This question comes from Bruce in Pointe Claire, Quebec.
Hey, Bruce.
Given a
Bruce is around.
given a choice in a small shop, which would you choose, a table saw or bandsaw?
I think if I could only have one, I would choose the table saw. I mean, the bandsaw, if you were going to do everything, no, I wouldn't amend that at all. Table saw would always be my first power tool purchase. Joiner would be my second. Bandsaw would probably be my third. There are those that would disagree, but that's fine. You asked me. I would take table saw over bandsaw. Next.
Next one comes from Bill Farrell in the chat.
Hi, Bill.
He says, what is your opinion on running the blade on the crown of the wheel as opposed to the front of the wheel?
Well, I've never had reason to do it any different. So when you put your blade in and you tension it, now I try to answer these questions for the benefit of those who are really new to this and don't know, instead of just talking as if we're in the middle of a conversation with fellow competent tool workers. So
Rockwell must have always used aluminum.
this?
Yeah.
No, that's not a cast. Look here and see if you can show them that profile, that radius. You see how the top of the wheel is crowned? So these are called tires, and they wear out, and you can replace them.
Those aren't rubber, though.
No, these are neoprene. I think.
I thought they were polyurethane.
Yeah, whatever. So you put your blade in, you tension it, and then back here on this side, I can move this. This is your tension right here, and that's just it's a spring tension. So what it's doing is it's pulling this up, but there's a spring between the two. So the wheel it's not a direct. What's the word I'm trying to use?
It's not fixed.
Yeah, it's not fixed. There's a spring in there to allow a little bit of cushion. This one, if you back that off, and then you turn that, and what that does is it pushes on the bottom of the wheel, so it'll move your wheel in or out. And in moving it in or out, it's going to cause that band, the blade, to find its center point. And when you get it where you want it, you just come in and you lock this wing nut so it doesn't move. And now that will continue to run, and it'll keep the band right in the middle. So I have never run it any other way than right on the top dead center. So that, by the way, if we were doing this, you'd open up you'd pull your guides back, you pull your thrust bearing back, do the same thing underneath. So now nothing's in the way. Put your blade on, adjust your tension, and you just, you click it a little bit to kind of feel the tension, and when it's nice and tight, then you're going to track it. I usually just do it by hand and get it to run right in the middle. Now, once you've got that and you've locked it in, so now it's staying right there, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the guide bushings, or the thrust bearing, up, so that when I'm spinning this around, it's not quite touching that bearing. I don't want it spinning the bearing. When I get it where I want it, then I would lock that in place, do the same thing on the bottom, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to loosen these guides. We have to replace this piece. Now, these actually should be squared up, but you're going to bring one in so that it's just, the nice thing about these is you can actually make it touch the blade. Just touching the blade on the inside. And then I would do the same thing with this one and bring it over so it's just touching the blade. So you're not deflecting the blade, but you're not allowing the blade to move left or right. Once you get that one set, go down and do the same one underneath, and then you're ready to go. And the nice thing about using the same blade all the time is usually when you break the blade or it dulls, you can just take it off, put the next one on, and it'll usually fall right back into line.
Why don't you show them how it's metal cutting?
I will, but let's answer a few more questions. Go for it, please.
Tim in the chat says, what do you
Pardon?
recommend for
Oh,
replacement?
yes, thank you. Pardon?
What do you recommend for a replacement for a Delta bandsaw fence?
You know what? I don't think I've ever bought any aftermarket fences. There's lots of them out there. For as often as I use a fence, I just make one. I make one out of an L-shaped piece of, a piece of MDF, 1-inch MDF, even 3/4, and a piece in the bottom. So make it an L shape so that you can clamp on the flat part of the L and it'll hold that in place. You want to make sure that it's standing square. But I really can't give you an opinion on the aftermarket fences because I've either bought bandsaws with the fence already attached or I've just made one. If you want to look over here real quick. So this is a big General 20-inch. So this bandsaw was probably $12,000 to $15,000 maybe when they were last made. And there's the fence that comes with it. So this is actually a jet lock fence. This may have been added to it because I've had, how many of these?
2.
2? This is the third one?
No, this is the second. 20-inch
It's only
general?
the second general?
Yeah.
We didn't sell one time?
No.
The fence that came on the other one doesn't look like this at all.
The other one didn't come with a fence.
Yeah, it did.
No.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it has that flat bar on the back, on the front. Jake, where do you think the fence came from?
The bar was added by Willie. He fabricated that bar.
Oh, we took that off the 15-inch? Oh, okay. Well, anyways, that's a jet lock one. It's got to be loosened up. It's a little bit tight. But what's interesting about this, and what I like about this, these are cast iron wheels. What I don't like about it is, here's your adjustment. This is your adjustment for the canting of the wheel. So this thing is spinning, and you've got your hands here. I suppose it's not such a big deal, but when it's turning around when it's spinning like that, and you're sitting in here having to make this adjustment, I've had more comfortable situations presented to me. So this one loosens, and then this inside one...
No, opposite.
The in one tightens?
The bigger one tightens.
The bigger one tightens. So you loosen it, the big one, and this one, and as you move it, it'll move the blade this way or that way. You get it where you want it, and you lock it down. I don't like that. I'd much rather have it outside. What I do like is this. You always want to have, not only for safety, but you always want to have your guides so that they just clear your workpiece for 2 reasons. You don't want to be cutting pieces and have that much blade exposed. Not only is it unnecessary danger, but if it does break at some point, that blade has from here to here to whip one side to the other, and if your hands are around, there is a chance you may get cut.
As well as the inaccurate.
The other reason is, if you bring your down here, now your guides are right there, and they're preventing that blade from twisting. If they're way up here, well, there's quite a bit of flex in your blade. These guides are not set up. I need to go in and redo this. But what I was going to tell you is, if you look in here, there's a cable. Where is it? There's a cable right here. See that cable? That cable affects that pulley, and down inside that column is a big lead weight, just like it used to be in old windows. So this is a perfect counterbalance. On a lot of them, as soon as you loosen the tension, that thing comes crashing down. So it's nice. You loosen this one up, you just get it wherever you want it, and then lock it in place. Nice big heavy bar. Everything about General was just super duty. You want to keep them clean. I also like the fact that these ones, and I would add this if I had a bandsaw that didn't have it, there's a brush on here. And that brush just keeps the wheel clean so that you don't end up with, especially pine pitch, gunking up on your wheel. This one has a brake, which is really nice. So when it's running and you shut it off, rather than walk away with a bandsaw that's going to spin for the next 5 minutes, you can just come in here, push down on the pedal, and that brake will stop it. So when we measure a bandsaw, and you say it's a 20-inch, so essentially your wheels are 20-inch in diameter. You don't quite have 20 inches in the throat, but close. We're missing about a half an inch. Actually, not even that. We've got 19 3/4. Nice big machine. We've moved it enough times. We know it's heavy. I think it weighs 800 pounds. Next question, Frick.
Next question comes from Keith McDonald.
Hi,
in
Keith.
Illinois. What is the best way to check the tension on the bandsaw?
Well, come over here. You know, there's a, if you look on here, there's a guide right here, a blade tension. I never pay any attention to that because I don't even know how to read it. But, Moose, what key is that?
W.
Key of W. There's some guys that will tell you that if you should be able to push it, there should be a certain amount of deflection. I wish I could be more specific in this, but you just kind of get a feel for where it's tight enough. If it's too loose, when it's running, you'll see the blade wobbling back and forth. And if it's too tight, you're going to risk breaking it. They almost always break on the weld. Sorry, that's not a satisfactory answer, but I can't do any better than that because I don't know.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
You got a precise answer. The key of W.
Yeah, the key of W. The purveyor of the dead cat. Next, Frick.
I got some vets. You want?
Yep. Who we got?
Let's see.
Kevin's on.
Frick, did you
You're
get the
gonna
list?
read
Yeah,
them?
I found it. Yeah. All right. Ferris
Moose.
Butler's here from July
That's
22.
yours.
Got that?
What's that?
Ferris Butler from July 22.
Ferris. Hi, Ferris.
Mike
Yep.
Mike Lailman, September 22.
Hey, Mike.
Rick Elder, summer 22.
Hey, Rick.
Michael Delvoye.
Check out my belt. Can you see my belt? Rick made me this belt. Can you see it?
Yep.
See it enough.
See
Turn it
enough?
around.
PHP.
Did you see the PHP on it?
Yeah.
Rick is not only is Rick a wood craftsman, he's a very fine leather craftsman. Actually, thank you. We've got some Rick
Drill press.
Rick gifts to give away tonight. Where are they?
Drill press.
What drill press?
They're on the drill press.
What drill press?
How many drill presses
Oh,
do you
right
have
there.
in here?
Oh, right there. Yeah. Okay, I'll bring them up there. Thanks, Rick. Glad you mentioned that. Next, who else, Rick?
Michael Delvoye, August 22.
Hi, Mike.
Jeremy Thompson, also August 22.
Jeremy.
Jesse Millar, October 22.
Brother Jesse.
Jim Eakin,
Jim.
June 22. Kevin Burris.
Golden Eye Jim.
Kevin Burris is here,
Kev.
October 19.
Was it October 19?
October 2019, yeah.
Kev was the last class we had before COVID?
Yeah.
Well, he'd come to the wood shows with us quite a bit, so I knew him before he arrived.
Cool Ray Dorr, October.
Cool Ray.
Same class.
Ray.
And Jeff O'Connor.
And Jeff O'Connor. Jeffrey.
We'll get some
Jeffy. Little Jeffy.
All right.
Kim not there? Oh, she wouldn't have put herself down, but I'm sure Kim is around somewhere. Hi, Kim. Okay, next one, Frick.
This one comes from Adam Knott in Devon, UK.
Not Adam.
Very funny. He says, in choosing a bandsaw, is there a way to work out the maximum resaw that the motor will be capable of cutting? Example, how many horsepower will be needed to resaw an 8-inch oak board?
There probably is. I have no idea. You know, 8-inch, resawing an 8-inch piece of oak would be, you think about trying to cut that on a table saw. That's going to require some torque. I certainly wouldn't, I probably wouldn't attempt that on a small, well, you could. But I mean, you're pushing that on a 14-inch bandsaw. I certainly wouldn't.
Wouldn't you want?
I tried to do it. I had a 10-inch bandsaw when I first started. Very first started woodworking. I bought a 10-inch bandsaw from somebody. little rinky thing. I could carry it under my arm and run away with it. And I tried to do stuff on it. It was way, way underpowered. But that said, that big 20 inches, is that run on a 3/4 horse?
I think
It's
no, I think it's a 1. It's
See if
either
I
a
can
1
tell
or
you.
1.5 actually. It's on the backside.
Well, it's not nearly as big as you would expect. But that's because you've got these big, where do you think it is, Jake? Oh, right there. This 20-inch is running on a 1.5 horse. So that's not really big. My table saw is 3 horse. But when you've got these 2 big cast iron wheels turning, there's quite a bit of momentum. And you just have to adjust your feed rate.
Well, you'd also want to adjust your tooth count, right?
Yeah,
You wouldn't want just one giant tooth.
No, you balance your tooth count for resawing, or you're going to have fairly low TPI. But you'll tell when you start to push it in if it's slowing down. It's got to be able to keep its momentum up, and that's the best way to do it is just adjust your feed rate. I would say I'm going to make a stab at this. I think you'd want 3/4 horse. I think a 1/2 horse on a small bandsaw because you don't have nearly as much. I mean, these are aluminum wheels, so you don't have a whole lot of momentum in your favor.
I know skirt is adjustable on a bandsaw with these, but that would help as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, the wider your kerf, the more material you're moving. But 8-inch piece of oak. So I have my options here. We got a lot of bandsaws. We've got 20-inch bandsaws, we've got a 14-inch bandsaw, we've got a 15-inch bandsaw. So I would go to the 20-inch bandsaw to cut that. And I wouldn't have any problem doing it on the 15 over there. But a 14-inch like that, I probably wouldn't. You could if you had to, but I typically wouldn't. So I'd say as a rule of thumb, if you want one, 3/4 horse. Rick, next.
So this question in the chat, it's from Jeremy and Ken, kind of want to know the same thing. What would you consider the minimum horsepower for a 14-inch bandsaw? Or what size and horsepower does the typical woodworker want for most tasks?
If you've got a fairly heavy-duty 14-inch bandsaw, I don't know whether they come with 1/2 horse or not, but I would think a 3/4 horse would be sufficient. I don't know if you could put anything much bigger on that. There's not, well, it's the difference in size, the frame size of a 3/4 horse or a 1/2 horse is not that much of a difference anyway, but I would think a 3/4 horse would be sufficient. Probably 3/4 would be at the top end when you consider that big 20-inch is running on just a horse and a half. In fact, I even think we had, that one over there might even only have a horsepower on it. Yeah,
The new one we just got?
3/4 is my vote. Yeah. Next, Rick.
Getting a lot of recommendations to run your hair through the bandsaw.
Not yet.
Okay, next one comes from Chris
You're jealous.
Chris Forsberg in Long Island, New York.
Hi, Chris.
What is drift and how do you compensate when resawing? Angle the fence or use a single point of contact fence or freehand? I've
never liked single point of contact, but let's back up a little bit. So what is drift? Drift is the same on a bandsaw as it is on a handsaw. So you have set, well, I just happen to have a saw that I could use as a visual aid. So this is a saw, a hand saw. These are the teeth. Each tooth is bent. So if the first one is bent to my right, the next one is bent to my left. And you just look down there and you'll notice that the teeth, that's what happens. You've got every other tooth goes that way and the opposite teeth go that way. The purpose is so that when you make a saw cut, just been dying for a chance to use this. When you make a saw cut, you have to have enough clearance to prevent the blade from binding. If you didn't have any set, you wouldn't get in there an eighth of an inch and it would just get stuck. If you have a lot of set, then it wobbles because the kerf, that slot, is so much wider than the blade, it allows the blade to wobble back and forth, leaving you having to steer. If you have just the right amount of set, the sides of the kerf actually rub on the saw plate itself and they prevent it from going off to the left or to the right. All right, now that's the story behind the set. Why does drift occur? If you have more set on the left, when you saw, the biggest open area is going to be on the left and the saw is going to want to go over there. If you have excess set on the right, same thing, it's going to drift over that way. So if you have drift on a bandsaw blade, you're probably going to have to change your blade because nobody really goes through and sharpens bandsaw blades anymore or goes in and adjusts the set on them. And you're talking about, on one like that, $15. How much grief are you going to go endure for $15? And if you can imagine going in trying to set the teeth, that many teeth, I wouldn't even bother, just replace the blade. So that's your number one cause of drift is you've worn the teeth on one side and causing it to drift to the opposite side. What was the other question? Read the question for me again.
What is drift and how do I
What is drift and how do you compensate when resawing?
Okay, so severe drift, replace the blade. If you've just got a little bit of drift, then it could be, if your band wasn't sitting right on the top of that and it was laying a little bit to the front or back, that could possibly be causing the blade to be out of tension in such a way that it's a little bit pulling one direction or the other. You could compensate that by either correcting this, or if you just have a blade that is not running true to this. So if I put a fence on there that's in line with that miter gauge slot, and and as I'm pushing the board through, it's either causing the board to get pushed over tighter to the fence to where the blade is coming out this way, or it's pushing the board away from the fence, then what you need to do is, like I said, go in, take a piece of lumber with a straight edge on it. Same material thickness that you're working with would be best. Everything is all squared up. Come in here and draw a line, like so. Then you're going to come over to your bandsaw, adjust it, get it just like you would, meaning have your guides just clearing the piece. Turn your saw on, and now you're going to start cutting, and you want to follow the line. So I'm going to stay on this side of the line. And as I do it, make sure, by the way, that your throat plate is sitting flat so that it's not pushing your board up when as you go over it. And by about halfway through, you're going to determine that I have to push this at a slight angle to one side or the other in order to keep that blade cutting beside the line. When you do, at some point, stop everything, leave this, note that angle, and then adjust your fence to be parallel to that angle that the test piece is on. And that's the easiest way to deal with your drift. Don't push too fast. Sometimes you push too fast, you'll cause the saw to drift. It'll just find its sweet spot. Yeah. Next, Frick.
Pete Ambrose is here, by the way.
Pete Ambrose. Well, just so happens that I have a little memorabilia from Pete Ambrose. Pete was here in, was Pete our first class that we taught here? Jake?
No.
No?
No, Jeff was in the first class we taught here.
Oh, well, Pete was here.
He's 2019.
Pete fought in Vietnam and was still in the Army and fought in the first Gulf War. And he every time I go over to help him, he say, "No, I'm getting it. He didn't quite have his dovetail done to his liking when he left, but he said, I promise I will send you one that I've perfected. So I wish I could reenact this, but this box came, and with instructions on opening it. So you open it up, and you push the button, and the lights all came on. So there's all these Christmas lights on. You open up the card, and Star Wars theme started to play. And as you dug through, out appeared this. He actually called it a miter joint, but this was Pete's dovetail that he came. So I keep that. Welcome, Pete. Next, Rick.
Next one comes from.
And Pete, by the way, is down in Louisiana. No, Mississippi. Pete's in Mississippi. Cool Rays in Louisiana, right, Jake? Yes.
Okay, next one comes from Eric in the chat. Are carbide
Eric.
Are carbide bandsaw blades worth the price?
No. Well, so when I bought my Laguna, they gave you, it was called, I think they called it the Resaw King. It was carbide. Had no luck with it whatsoever. Ended up buying another one at some point down the road. No luck with it at all. No, I personally, there are people that love it. I don't. I wouldn't bother with it at all. Not for the money, not for the cost. You can buy, you think about how many regular bandsaws you could buy for the cost of one carbide one, and I can pretty much promise you that you'll get more life out of high carbon blades for that same dollar value than you will a carbide one. Now that I'm the last time I would have had a carbide blade was probably all the way back into 2013, 14. So maybe things have changed since then, but I was never impressed enough to go that route again. They're too expensive. Too expensive for what you were getting. I don't mind spending money. I'll spend a lot of money if what I'm getting is really worth it. But my experience twice with it was, no, that wasn't. Next, Frick.
So we have a lot of people asking about the saw, so I'll just remind them to sign up for the newsletter.
This saw? Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. So Jake and I have been talking about making a panel saw, kind of had it in the back of our mind for a long time, and we finally got serious about it. Oh my goodness, I bet it's been over a year, hasn't it?
It's only been a year.
A year? So this is our first one. This is a 7 teeth per inch rip. It's now we made this a little bit different. Our intent, our market is guys who are building furniture using dry, seasoned hardwoods and softwoods. The saw plate is fairly heavy. It's 35 thousandths of an inch thick. The set is only 3 thou per side. So that's less than what you would typically find on a handsaw. But you cut, let me just show you, well, I don't turn this into a saw commercial, but you asked. I'm gonna make a cut. And then I'm gonna have Jake hone in.
Cut that piece off.
No, I want you to just go in there and look and see how straight that is.
Wow.
Looks
Beautifully straight. Beautifully straight. Now, just in case you're saying, oh yeah, Rob, but that's a piece of pine. Here's a piece of 3/4 walnut. She's a beaut. So, 22-inch blade, matching crosscuts coming, swanstone handle, and the nice thing about it is the weight, and it's got some serious weight. So when you're using it, just let the saw falling is all you need. So you pull it back up and let it fall. It's very comfortable. We've played around with the handle to finally get what we wanted. I really like the look of it. Yeah, we torture tested it. Our big fear is the handle going to be strong enough to support, this killed me to do, is the handle going to be strong enough that it'll survive a break? I hope I don't wake him. So we dropped it, I don't know how many times, from this height onto a hard floor. Of course, it broke the horns off, but you'd expect that. But it never bothered these two sections. And we actually went in and we beefed them up anyway, made them a little bit thicker. So I don't have any problems. I love this material because it's waterproof. You're not going to have a finish wear off. It's dense, it's strong, it's heavy, and it balances the saw beautifully. And we're going to make them right here. We're just now working on our logo that Chris is going to engrave on there for us. And we've never done this before, but we are going to pre-sell these because we think the demand is pretty high. So you will be able to buy these before they come out. The crosscut is going to be 9 TPI crosscut, same length, looks exactly like that, only it'll have a crosscut tooth configuration instead of a, hope they don't get hurt over there, they're playing on that. Anyway, now, the only way you're gonna find out about this, get on the newsletter. Just go to the website, RobCosman.com. On every page, you can sign up for the newsletter, and then we'll let you know as soon as it comes, and it'll be first come, first serve. We expect you're gonna be very busy making them. We've wanted one. I loved Lee Nielsen saws, but they stopped making them several years ago, and they don't have any intent on making them anytime soon. So we had to have a good handsaw. I'm fingers crossed that we're going to have these in time for our first class in April. Rick, I'll entertain some questions on that if there's questions to be asked.
Okay. This is a bandsaw question. Quick question from LC Woodworking. He's on TikTok. He said, "What brand of bandsaw blade do you recommend?"
Oh, you know, I've kind of. We settled on Starrett? Is that what we're using now? Yeah, I've tried a couple of different brands, and I really like Starrett. Where do we get them? Woodcraft?
Starrett.
Do we buy them direct from Starrett? STARRETT. Starrett bandsaw blades, and we've had really good luck with them. So, you know, it's one of those things, you find something that works, you stick with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Brick, next.
Yep. This one comes from Doug. Can you stone a bandsaw blade to adjust the set like you can do with a handsaw?
Well, I've gone in and I've done some of this. Sometimes the weld on the back side of your bandsaw, you'll hear it tick, 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 tick. And I've gone in with an old oil stone and held that on the back to try to smooth that out. I've actually tried stoning the side. It's a little bit of a precarious thing to be holding a stone into the side of a blade, but I find it actually better if you squeeze the blade between two pieces of oil stone. You wouldn't want to use water stone because it would destroy those too quick. But having done that in the past, $15 for a bandsaw blade, it's not worth it. Just go buy a new blade. They're so inexpensive. It's not worth. I've never had one that I wanted to save that bad. Next, Rick.
Next question is from Jim Sinowaski in West Homestead, Pennsylvania. How much are you...
Jim?
Yeah. Have you ever added a riser block to a 14-inch bandsaw?
No, I didn't, Jim, but they're available. So what Jim's talking about is this bandsaw only has a capacity of 6.5 inches. So wood turners would, this would be the most common bandsaw. Actually, is this, what size is this? What is 14? See, Mooser. This is probably the most common bandsaw for wood turners just because it's relatively inexpensive. But they were for cutting out their blanks, it was limited capacity. So you could buy a riser block, which I think would give you an extra 4 or 6 inches, and it would fit in here to just raise this whole thing up so that you now increased your capacity underneath the guide. I've never installed one. I've never...
That would only work on that style, right?
Well, it's made specifically for that style. It's just, I mean, you increase the length of your blade. The only other thing you do is it goes in between here and here. Have never done one, but a lot of people do, and I don't think there's any issue with it, so go ahead.
If they were only going to buy one of your two saws, which one would you recommend? Crosscut?
Crosscut.
Or which one should they get first, rather?
Crosscut.
Is that like saying I can only afford one gear? I can either have reverse or forward in my car. Which one should I get?
First.
Forward?
Yeah.
I'd probably take forward. I'm not coming back.
Which would be crosscut?
Yeah, oh, that's a tough question. My answer would be a 49-51 split. So I guess I would go with crosscut. Because you can rip with a crosscut, it's slow. And you can crosscut with a rip, but it's rough. So I would probably start with a crosscut. Yeah.
And you don't have a price yet, I assume.
No, we're working on we're working on that. I mean, Chris is here. Chris Davenport's with us tonight. Chris is our in-house engineer, even though he works for somebody else. But
Our in-house, out of house.
our in-house, out of house. So Chris is working on, how many different projects are you working on for us?
12.
I can't even name them all. I think there's more than 3. You just got another one tonight. So we've got to figure out the I wouldn't say mass production. I do all the initial product development, or Jake. So in this, I made all this stuff. Now I've got to teach them to do it. So it's got to be we have to build that into a system. We're pretty close. I think we're happy with the shape of the handle. Let me know your thoughts, by the way. Do you like the look of it? I really do. And yes, we will eventually have wood handles available, but this will be the mainstay. Yeah. The logo we're getting close on. We may actually be there. Frick and I have been working on that. I got some help from my mastermind group. And what else?
We think we have it done.
Yeah. We're pushing hard on it. So one of the things we wanted to gauge was what the demand was like, and that tells us what resources we can commit to this. So if you're interested in one of these, let us know, and that'll just motivate us. I also like your feedback. Is there anything you like? Anything you don't like? The logo is going to be cool. It's going to be the RC RobCosman over here. On the ground, on the top, it's going to say precision made.
Nope. Precision hand saws.
Precision hand saws.
And made in Canada.
And then an oval on the bottom is going to say made in Canada
Since 2008.
In 2008. 2008 is when we started making dovetail saws. And then there'll be a maple leaf on there. Thank you, Kev. And somewhere down here is going to be the tooth count and the rip or crosscut. Now that's just the start. Those are the two. The next two we're going to make are smaller versions. What did we say, 16 inches? 16? Kind of a saw that you would use when your tenon saw is not deep enough. It's a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it.
Quite a few people are interested. They like the look of it. And yeah, so head on over to our website, sign up for the newsletter, and then that way you can be.
I'm telling you that it cuts. Have you ever used a handsaw, Chris? Have you? No. Have you ever used a handsaw before, Frick?
Yes. I have.
Oh, when? Oh, cutting down the Christmas tree.
That's right.
You want to come over and try making a cut with it, just to tell them? So this is somebody who woodworks a lot less than me.
We would describe their skill level as tadpole.
Tadpole? Wait a minute. I'm gonna do you a favor. I'm just gonna clamp. No, I didn't put the blade
Can't be
in.
any worse.
I didn't put the blade in backwards, and there's no room for blood. I'm rather than have Frick have to hold this in place with his knee, so that he doesn't cut my saw bench. All right, Frick, what I'm going to do is I'm going
Strike
to
him a
draw.
line.
I'm going to give you a line.
Oh.
Just try to cut along that line. Okay? It's a 3-finger grip. Pinky Frick, 3-finger grip. So the whole idea is by you hold like this, you don't have a whole lot of control this way, but when you extend your thumb and your finger, now you do. But it's a relaxed grip. You're going to use your thumb out here to try to get it started. That's where you could cut yourself.
I have no feeling in this finger. I don't know if you remember that.
So, okay, usually you can start on your pull stroke, but use as much of the blade as you can. Are you ignoring the line?
Are you kidding? I am right on the line. I don't know what you're talking about. Look at that.
That's pretty good. That is an automatic handsaw. Thank you, Frick. You're always a good sport. So there you go. I can just see that newsletter count spinning. All right, next.
Okay, just a second. Oh, I had a question from the chat.
Oh, here. I gotta say something. I need a second here. So,
How many seconds?
2 years ago, when did we start the Bench Brigade?
Okay.
You can set that down for a minute. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Bench Brigade so that you can appreciate just exactly what's being done behind the scenes. I need my phone because I have the stats on here. So just to give you the story in the shortened version, we started our first Purple Heart class in November of 2016. We had no idea what we were doing. We just knew that we wanted to do something to help. And then it was such a success, we really didn't know what. We started doing them. The next one was scheduled for the spring of 2017. Then Luther joined us and it got organized. So one night I woke up after we had done probably 6 or 7 or 8, maybe even 8 classes. And I thought, holy smokes. Here we bring these guys in, we teach them, we send them home with these tools, and they go home and they don't have a bench to work on. So I started calling some of them. Well, actually, Rob, no, I haven't done anything since the class. I really don't have anything to work on. I thought, oh my goodness, we gotta fix this. Meanwhile, I had developed this bench back in 2012. It was a really easy bench to build, good solid structure. I knew that I couldn't take it on because I was tapped out. I didn't have the bandwidth to take on anything else. And I don't remember how Jack Lane popped into my life. He may have just been following us on one of these, and he got a hold of me and he said, Rob, I would absolutely love to take over that for you. And I said, Jack, I would absolutely love to have you take it over. So Jack, who is a retired Air Force vet, took it on, and it didn't take very long. I think our original goal was to have 30 builders. And the idea was that we would allow civilian volunteers to procure the materials. We would provide them with the instructions. We would send them the expensive parts, which would be the vise and the bench dogs. They would build the bench, and then Jack would coordinate it so that whoever's closest to the vet would actually deliver the bench to them. And it wasn't long before the 30 or 40 that we were looking for was doubled and tripled, and now it's somewhere, I'll give you the number, but I think it's over 300. And Jack has been helped by Chris Chahusky, who has been instrumental in helping us figure out how the shipping problems in getting these benches to different places. We've got numerous volunteers, Bench Brigade members that have built multiple benches. Think of the story of the bench that got delivered thanks to UPS, delivered all the way over to Hawaii. So I'm going to give you what I can tell you here. This is some of the, I'm just going to read it because it was coming in while we've been doing it. So to date, there's been there's some that are in production, but to date, 92 benches have been built and delivered. 40 of them alone, just in 22 alone, with one still to go. We have 350 plus members, thanks to 4 large guilds that joined as a guild. Kodiak Woodworkers Guild in New Brunswick, lost count of how many benches they've built. Alabama Woodworkers Guild built 4 benches for Fort Campbell, Kentucky vets. Woodworkers Guild of Atlanta. Ruston Men's Shed in Ruston, LA, would be Louisiana, built benches for Ryan Groves in Mississippi. They're all superstars, but Jamie Fagel in North Carolina has built 5 benches for 5 vets. He leads the pack. Man of few words, but always says, keep them coming. He starts number 6 for April 23rd vet. Fantastic. That guy gets it. Shout out to retired Dr. Kent Merrill in Tennessee. He did a beautiful job on Peter Houston's bench in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, meticulously photographed and journaled every step of the process. 200 plus photos. Brent Becker in Saskatchewan, that's in province in the middle of Canada, in case you don't know. He built Freddie Dumas, and Freddie was here in our class, first May class of 2022. Oh yeah, Freddie was part of our only Canadian class.
No.
What? No, that was 21. Sorry. Freddie was there was 2 Canadians in that class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freddie and Mike.
I remember Freddie, yeah.
Guggen?
Freddie was in the back, but far back left-hand corner. Bench, so let me read that again. He built Freddie Dumas' bench, and after another builder didn't come through, he built Mike Lemoyne's bench with almost no notice. If we had a team spirit award, it would go to Brett for 2022. We're in Canada. These are the countries we have bench builders in, and we've built benches in. Actually, no, we haven't built benches in all these countries, but we have builders ready. We're in Canada, United States, Australia, Ireland, England, Denmark, Germany, and Israel. Can you post that picture of Stella?
I can, yeah.
The little Stella, who was born just a pound, and there's quite a happy little picture of her.
Yeah, it's on there.
She's prepping for her first birthday party next month. And we have an honorary Bench Brigade member with his new bench, which is 44 inches high, and that would be NBA star David.
We showed that last time, I think.
Did we? Okay. Now, I want to go back. Oh, so here's what we need. Listen up. So, Ralph Sutton, Ralph's a big guy. Ralph was in our August class, and Ralph's builder has been seriously ill. So ill that he's not been able to contact Jack. So Ralph has not got a bench. So we need somebody somewhere near the Jefferson City, Missouri area that can step up to the plate and build a bench for Ralph Sutton. Ralph's been trying to work without a bench and actually impaled himself with a chisel recently. So we got to fix that. Frick, stop being a bad example.
Yeah.
And Jack is on tonight, so big shout out to Jack. And I think that is Thomas Eckenberg is in Munich, Germany. So he was our first volunteer in the European continent. I guess he was quite excited about that. And he's building Casper's bench. Casper's in Denmark. So there you go. Lots going on the Bench Brigade. And we are trying to backdate and make sure every vet that's ever been to one of our classes has a bench. So some I've not been able to get a hold of. If you happen to be on there tonight and you don't have a bench and you've been to our workshop as one of our scholarship vets, PHP, please let me know so we can get that wrong corrected. Go for it, please.
Just give me 1 second here.
We running out of questions?
No.
You're just being fussy?
Yeah.
Any more comments about the saw?
I haven't really been following. Jeremy wanted to give a shout out to Ken Stewart, who made and delivered his bench.
Say that a little louder, please.
Jeremy Thompson wanted to give a shout out to Ken Stewart, who made and delivered his bench. It was 6+ hours away.
Thank you.
Ken's also on, so
Hi,
saw
Ken.
that.
Thank you, brother.
And then here, really quickly, is the picture of David with his bench, if you didn't see it last time. All right.
That's David Robinson of
San Antonio
Spurs fame. David was here, and David and his brother took the class.
Our second last class of last year, I think.
Oh yeah, was it our last? No,
Second-
September.
second
September
last.
class. September.
Are you ready for a question?
Yeah, I am.
Kit Sumner in Connecticut.
Hi, Kit.
How important is blade tension and RPM when cutting on a bandsaw?
Well, blade tension is really important because the blade will flutter. If you don't have enough tension, the blade will flutter up and you know, prematurely wear, I would think. So, but you have too much tension, then you risk breaking your blade. So there's just a sweet spot. You know, you do this so long, you just learn by sound and by feel and by watching, and that's hard to impart. And I apologize for not being able to give you more information than that. As far as blade speed, the only real exception, can we show this, Jake?
Yeah.
I don't know how many feet per minute it is. Most bandsaws are already set. They move pretty quickly, I'll tell you that, except if you're cutting metal. So General and Delta both made a combination wood metal cutting bandsaw, and it has a gearbox in an oil bath, and you can go in and change from going really fast to literally.
Are you gonna plug it in?
Huh?
Are you gonna plug it in?
Yeah, I guess we can do that. Chris, you got power there somewhere? Oh, here, right over top of our head. Come on. That thing keeps moving.
I keep lifting it.
You're right, getting short and short. See, he's lifting it. You coming? All right. So if you're cutting metal, you want to cut it really slow. In fact, our bandsaw over there, when
You
it's
need to take the cover off the other side so we can see the speed.
well, how are you going to be able to see? You'll be able to see right from here.
No,
This is pulley. So that's
so
wood speed.
they're both spinning.
They're
and
both
they will
spinning.
both spin.
Well, but they both spin. They just
So you don't see it unless you look at the wheel.
no. And what you do, I wish Al was here
Dad,
to tell
we need
me.
to see the wheel.
What? I don't want to take that off. They know how it's spinning. It's not going to be able to tell how fast it's spinning by looking at the
Yeah,
wheel.
you will.
Fine.
What was so hard about that?
Well, I forgot that I already had these off. All right, here you go. So this is wood. Now, do you remember how to do this?
Yeah.
Tell me, coach me.
You pull that.
Pull this out or push it in? No, this
Push
goes
it
in.
in.
This
Yeah, you
goes
have to
in.
make sure it meshed. Did it mesh? Yeah.
Did it? There.
There.
Okay, so now, what does that do?
That's what it does. It disengages the top pulley and engages the bottom pulley.
See the difference? And that thing's barely moving. Now you can change. You can use the step pulley to change that a little
Yeah.
bit. So this one is just running idle. This is the one that's actually driving it. So that's a step pulley, and you have 4 speeds available. So that's sitting somewhere near the middle. So cutting wood, you want it to go fast. You're cutting metal, you want it to go slow. We just did that because we wanted to play around with it. Next Frick.
Just a second.
That's Maggie. That's not Maggie, sorry. That's
Or
Maple.
Maple.
Keith in Pennsylvania wants to know what your thoughts are on using a silicone steel bandsaw blade.
Heard it, never used it. Sorry. Now, I'll tell you what experience I have. We've bought bimetal blades. So bimetal blades are, your blade flexes a lot. If you think about it, every time it goes around, that blade is bending. So you need steel that will, that is quite flexible. Yet, if you want really hard, long-wearing teeth, well, that's not going to be, that's kind of like carbide and steel. Steel's flexible, carbide isn't. Carbide's very brittle. So what they'll do is you've got a malleable, not a malleable, you've got a flexible blade, and then you have hardened teeth that are attached to it. That's called bimetal. They're expensive. They're probably twice the price of a regular blade. The only time we ever used that was when we were cutting swanstone, because you had to. But normally we just use a high carbon blade, and you know, I've never found anything or heard about anything being so much better that it was worth going to. We get a long life out of our bandsaws. It's not until somebody goes over and either hits a nail or cuts something really hard with it that destroys it. But yeah, again, they're cheap, so. But no, I can't give you an opinion on the silicone steel. Don't know. I was just going to show you real quick. Do we have any idea what the donations are like tonight?
No, but I'll get Luther to
Okay.
shoot you a message.
So we had, shoot, I don't even have a Jeff Shave Bowl anymore. This is what
Yeah,
Kev
somebody
does.
took the last one.
Finally. This is Kev laser engraves on slate or on granite. He's actually doing one right now for some guy for his business sign to go outside, which I think will be really cool. So if there's a date, you have a date and time that is momentous, have Kevin carve it in stone for you. So we'll give away one of those tonight with every $1,000 for every $1,000 we raise, we give away a gift. Jeff makes, well, we'll have to advertise these. So Jeff makes 2 different knives. He makes a cleaver, and this is called, I forget what this is called. This is it's Damascus steel, and I think this is a shucking knife for. Yeah, for what do you shuck? Oysters? Oyster shucking knife. And that is a bog oak. That is a bog oak handle, and there's Jeff's logo. Now, Jeff's wife, Kim, is a craftsperson in her own right, and she makes custom handbags. So if you're female or you're like Frick and you want a Merce, I think she does male ones. Or if you just want to be a really nice guy and you win the prize and you'd rather give your wife something, Kim will make you a custom handbag. As I've said it numerous times, I know nothing about handbags, but I do know about craftsmanship, and craftsmanship you can tell. So this is really well done. And we've seen some great reviews of Kim's work. She just got a raving one the other day from a mother, and the daughter's demanding that she gets one too, so Kim's doing that. Any more vets to say hello to, Frick?
Haven't heard any, no.
Huh?
I haven't noticed any. Gina hasn't sent me anything.
Okay. Next question.
Donations are at $1,250.
Okay, so that's one prize until we bump that up.
Melanie in Minnesota wants to know, will adding an extender to get more height to my bandsaw lead to drift? Also,
Lead to drift?
lead to drift, yeah.
Well, I mean, there must be a way that they index it. I don't know how they do it. So I really can't, is it Melanie?
Yep.
I really can't comment on that, Melanie, but I would think, I mean, when you're setting your blade, adjusting your blade, you've got a little bit of play, and that'll still stay in the middle. And I would think that even if it was off, you can adjust it. When you're moving your wheel in and out, it'll it'll center itself. That's the beauty of that convex wheel. So I think you'd be all right. But there's got to be. They wouldn't sell it if there wasn't some way of indexing it.
So the second half of her question was, am I better off buying something used and likely 10 to 20 years old, or a lower end model? I'm limited on budget.
Oh, definitely buy the older used stuff. So if we just walk around here, this, and I'm just going to tell you the age on our machines.
It's gotta be 80s?
Well, this, I'm going to guess that this is back into the 70s. I don't think this is 80s. This is 70s. Now, that's just a guess. That Bosch chop saw is brand new.
But I wouldn't buy a used chop saw.
No, they get too much work.
Abuse.
So this general thickness planer, what I do know is that this logo, like that, was changed in 1964. So this is 1964 pre. This is a little bit
Early
newer.
2000s, isn't it?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Harold, who works here, bought this new, so this would have been early 2000s. That general,
That was pretty late too.
Yeah, that was probably No, they don't have dates on them. That would, I
Early
guess, to say that
2000s.
would be, yeah, I was going to say 20 years old. This General Bandsaw, oh, they changed it so many times. I would say that that was somewhere in the late 80s, 90s.
That nameplate looks similar to the lathe.
This one, when they used to cast it in, I think that goes back into the 80s. Al restored all of these. That Poitra, they were bought out, I think they were bought out in the 90s, so that, I'm going to guess and say that goes back into the 70s. This drill press up here would be 30 years old. I love the old equipment. The old equipment was built so much better. I mean, I would get, when I say old, I stay away from Babbitt bearings, but then you're going way back into the 20s and 30s. You want ball bearings, but I would take anything old. As long as the casting wasn't broken, belts, bearings, and motors are the only things that wear out, and they can be readily changed. I would buy that before I'd buy any new equipment. There's not much new with the exception of what Jake's leaning on, which is the saw stop. And I would do commercials for them for free. Fantastic saw. And I grew up on a unisaw, which was the industry standard. But this is far and above better than any saw out there, easily. I know there's people diehards on their Powermatics, but that is a great saw. If we went over into the other shop, I'd show you, we'd have more equipment over there that would be at least 50 years old. Great stuff. If you can buy an old one, buy it. In fact, if I had to go buy a piece of equipment today that was new, in the consumer price range, I can't even think of a brand that I could recommend to you. Next, Rick.
Our good friend Sue B wants to know.
Hey, Sue. So we're coming down?
Well, yeah, we all want to know that.
Send your warm weather up, Sue. We still can't get into the country.
She wants to know, are rusty bandsaw blades a no-go, or will the rust scrape off during use? I just got a new bandsaw, but all the blades have rust on them.
Again, a bandsaw blade is a bandsaw is a rough cutting tool. You're never going to go from the bandsaw to applying finish. You've always got to do something to it. So as long as the blade cuts, I wouldn't worry about a little bit of rust. And yes, most of it will come off in the first couple of inches of wood that you cut. As long as they're not compromised to the point where they're breaking. It's never really that, it's not a danger. I've never seen anybody hurt. If you've got your guide down here and the blade breaks, it's under tension. And when it breaks, it's a bang and it scares the crap out of you. I've had it happen numerous times, but nothing happens. Just wait until it stops spinning before you open up the doors, because you've got that broken blade in there and the wheel spinning around, and you wouldn't want it to catch on the wheel and come out like a knife at you. Next, Frick.
So Michael wanted me to remind everyone to hit the like button. We have 670 viewers, but only 273 likes, so make sure you...
Well, that must mean that 400 or 500 people don't like us.
Well, that's possible.
Is that you, Frick?
No.
Was it your sawing?
Actually, I think I sold a few saws tonight with my sawing. Thank you.
Yeah, you did. Would that be
I
because
I saw somebody...
Would that be because they said, if Frick can use it?
Well, that's what Kevin Burris said.
Way to go, Kev.
I think I saw someone say that they want both of them right after I was done. So.
Yeah.
Doug wants to know if you recommend balancing your wheels.
Hey, Doug. Well, I mean, yes, you'd want your wheels balanced. Oh, interesting. What's we sold it, didn't we? We gave it to Kevin.
Yeah.
So I had a big Poitra. I'm not saying it right. How do you pronounce it? Do you know? P-O-I...
Somebody said it was Poitra.
Poitra. That sounds better. It's P-O-I-T-R-A-S. It was a machinery company in Quebec. And I had a big 24-inch bandsaw. And Kevin Burris has it now. And that was the only one that I ever saw like this. But it had all of these little movable weights all the way around the perimeter, inside and out, with each one had a set screw in it, and it was in a little track. So you could go in and you could perfectly balance your wheel by just moving one of these and locking it in a different place. It was a complicated process, but it was really interesting to have that kind of flexibility. Most are going to come to you already balanced, and I would think that when you put, the only time you're going to do anything is when you change the tires, but I would think that the tires would be uniform enough that they wouldn't throw it out of balance. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to go at mine with a drill and start drilling holes out, because that's how they typically do it. After they've made them and they balance them, they go in and they'll use a drill to drill out way material to fine-tune the balance on them. But you definitely want them to run balanced, because if not, they're going to vibrate all over the place. Hard on the bearings, too. Frick.
Jocelyn wants to know,
Jocelyn?
have you ever used a Harvey bandsaw, and would you recommend one?
Harvey bandsaw?
Yeah.
Sorry.
They look good, but expensive, she said. So
No, I don't know. I don't know the brand. Bandsaw blade or bandsaw?
Bandsaw.
bandsaw.
Harvey Tools.
No, I don't know that. Sorry, I don't know that brand. Next, Rick.
Dave Weber or Weber
Hey, Dave.
in
Dave
Ontario.
from Ontario.
Yep. How much are bearing blade guides an advantage over the ones with just static guides or cool blocks?
Read it again, please.
How much are bearing blade guides an advantage over the ones with just static guides or cool
yeah,
blocks?
that was the first question we answered. They're not an advantage. They're not an advantage because they have a tendency to build up. You know, the wheels are spinning like this, the blade's going down in between them, and you think, well, it's great because it's giving perfect support, but as especially the pitch from pine gets in there and it gets squeezed onto the blade, and then it just becomes really noisy because you get all this pitch stuck on the side of the blade and it's making it run really rough. Don't like them at all. Had them, took them off. Not an advantage in my opinion. Next, Frick.
Chris in Ohio wants to know,
Hey, Chris.
what is your opinion on cutting the tails out on a bandsaw?
Oh, no. You cut the dovetails, not your bandsaw. David did that, but not with my approval. You can learn. You get my saw, you'll be able to cut perfect dovetails. We'd even have Frick demonstrate, but I don't really want to push my luck.
Yeah, I've already done my chore for the night.
No blood.
Yep. Scott Hobbs in Iowa.
Hi, Scott.
What should be the first thing you do with a brand new bandsaw when setting it up for the very first time? And how often should it be oiled if used at least 3 hours every day?
Well, I mean, most are. Does that have grease nipples on it? That one? Most everything on it is sealed, so you don't have to do anything. If it's a new one, I can't imagine there being anything that needs to be oiled.
That one.
Let me look at this one. Bring the camera over here, can you? Take a peek at this and just kind of jog my memory. And this is what you would call a light industrial. And I don't think there's anything on here that requires lubrication. No, I can't get in that door. The bearings in the motor are sealed, so there's nothing there. The bearings up here are sealed, so there's nothing to be greased there.
Well, we've never done anything.
No. About the, I mean, really don't want any oil or grease on anything outside because it's only going to attract dust and that creates gunk. About the only thing that maintenance-wise, with the obvious, keeping your blade guides need to be kept flat and need to be in the proper position. But the only thing that really wears out is the thrust bearing, and it just stops spinning freely. So you have to go and buy a new one of those every once in a while. You want to keep everything. You want to keep all of the alignments and all the setup of the guides, top and bottom, in the proper position. Other than that, it's pretty much a maintenance-free. I mean, your tires are going to last a long time. You'll be 30 years before you have to replace those.
There's the holes.
The what?
The holes.
Where? Oh, yeah. So this is how they balance it. They take a drill press to it. They had to drill quite a bit out of this one in order to get it balanced. So there really isn't anything that you have to do, especially on a new bandsaw. I think we that big one that Kev has had grease nipples all over it, but that's an older machine that probably goes back into the 70s. Next, Rick.
Derek says, are there any tips on how to help prevent oily woods from gumming up the blade?
No. What I do is I'll just go and take a piece of hardwood, 2 pieces of hardwood, and when the machine's running, and come in on the side so that it's not pushing it over. You're squeezing it between it, and it'll help scrape that stuff off. But yeah, it gets gunky. I don't know of anything you can do to prevent that from occurring. Next, Rick.
TK in New Hampshire.
Hey, TK.
Can you elaborate on making a jig for the bandsaw that will trim pretty close to a wood part that is taped to a pattern?
Say that again, please.
Can you elaborate on making a jig for the bandsaw that will trim pretty close to a wood part that is taped to a pattern?
So you've taped. I wouldn't use a jig. Actually, what I would do is I'd get a pair of these. Come here, Moosey. I'd get a pair of these, and I'd have a bench lamp, and I'm really up really close, and I just use a steady hand. I usually anchor the piece of wood with one hand so that I'm kind of using it as a mobile fence, and then I just go slow until I can get a little bit better at it. But I don't make any kind of a guide. But I don't do stuff like that very often. Well, I shouldn't say that. We often are cutting pieces out for the first time. I'm designing a new handle or something. But that's not, I've never made any kind of a jig for that. I try to do it by eye and by hand and just go slow enough that you can control it. Is that Moosey? Ah. Talk to the remote. Want to say hi? This is baby Bruce, who's now 1, having a lot to say. He'll be taking over.
Talk. Say, oh,
Yes, a mouthful of fuzz. Attaboy.
say hi. Can you wave? Why do you put it back? Wave.
Everything has to go to the mouth. It all has taste. Next question, Frick. Now he's going to have a fur ball.
Kevin wants to know when did...
Kev?
different Kevin, not Kevin Burris.
Yeah.
When did General International stop being good? I believe I've heard that you don't like the newer GI
When
stuff.
did General International stop being good? They never were.
So basically when General became General International.
Yeah.
Well, General never became General International.
Well, when
That was a separate company, but General closed their doors, I think, in 2015, and they had been culling the line over the years because their stuff was so expensive. I'll give you an example. I was teaching in Seattle at the Woodcraft store, and they had a General drill press. So there's a General drill press on the floor. It didn't have this. This is the adjustment for raising and lowering the table. That didn't have that. That was an option. So it was just a table that you had to hold on to when you undid it. And it was $2,300 US. Well, you could buy another name with lasers and lights and everything under the sun, and it would be a third of that price. So they priced themselves out of the market, but they were manufacturing in North America. They're manufacturing in Canada. So it just got to a point where they couldn't compete. So they went out. But I would buy any of their equipment in any year. General International is offshore. It's, what do we have? We have that spindle sander, oscillating spindle sander, and we have that drum sander.
Right, we just got it. Right.
The thickness sander. Both we bought just because they were on auction. And they're poorly made. Where General used cast iron, these guys use stamped steel, and they weld pieces in to try to stiffen it up. But it's pretty inexpensive manufacturing. So no, I'm not a fan. You don't do that, that'll hurt your finger. Next, Frick.
That was Kevin Smira, by the way.
Oh, Kev. Hey, brother. Kev Smira was in our class. Jake, the year?
17.
17th. He would have been in Niagara Falls. Howdy, Kev. Next, Frick.
All right, wrap it up. Luther's telling us to shut down.
It's 10-2.
No, it's 7 minutes too.
Yeah, it takes you at least that to. I got to get the draw ready.
Well, give me one more question to chew on.
Sorry, I didn't. Let me just check the chat real quick.
Any more vets to say hello to?
I haven't really been looking out for that, to be honest.
Well, honesty's a good
Don't
policy.
lick that. Oh my goodness. Yuck. Yuck.
Eric Maloney wants to know. I can't get my blade to tension tight enough. Any ideas on how to get extra tension?
Can't get the blade tension tight enough? Well, if I couldn't get the blade tension tight enough on this, then the assumption
Shorter
would
blade.
be what?
Should get a shorter blade.
Well, yeah, that's actually a good one. You have a range. Your machine will take a blade within a certain range. So I would just get a little bit shorter blades. Your spring may be broken, but if you just don't have the capacity, then probably you're running too long of a blade, and you're running out of adjustment. What? Yeah? Yeah? Anything else, Frick? Or are we just going to give stuff away?
Yep.
How many?
One, I think.
Just one?
You want to know why you're not wearing shorts?
Because it's minus right now as we speak. We've had a really easy winter. We've only had 2 really cold snaps. One only lasted 3 days. But right now it is outside minus 14 Celsius. So that's cold enough that I draw the line on shorts. It's,
Not even a wind chill.
yeah, that's hiding behind a tree.
Feels like negative 18.
Feels like negative 18. Last night, I think it got down to minus 20. Anyway, shorts will come back soon enough. Next time we film, we're back into a warm spell. Any more comments about the saw while you're doing that, Frick?
I can't look at.
I haven't been this excited about a new product in a long time, because I fell in love with the Lee Nielsen saw when I first got one way back in 2002 or 3, and he said he was going to make more. And I had all kinds of people that wanted them. He didn't start making them until after I was gone from Lee Nielsen. Didn't make them for very long. I got a chance to buy 2 more near the end of it, and it's just wow. If you're going to work hand tools, even if you're working power tools, you've got a big long board, a 16-foot long board. It's a heck of a lot easier to take a handsaw to it to get it cut down to a manageable size than it is to try to maneuver it around your shop and get it over to the chop saw. But I prefer sometimes to build everything with hand tools, and it's just so much fun. If you've never done it, you should try it. It's so relaxing. It's so, what's the word? When you're done, it's gratifying, because when you're done, you're sitting there looking at something that you built yourself. Like this piece behind me, this traveler's chest, made entirely with hand tools. Started off with 3-inch thick, rough pine lumber, about 12 inches wide, 16-foot long, and we sawed it up, ripped it, cut, did everything by hand. Frick,
Yeah, we're ready.
you ready? How many prizes are we giving away?
We're at just under 1,600, so.
So we'll give away our 3 dead cats. We'll give away our 3 dead cats. We'll give away one of Rick Elder's. So Rick does these. He's a what do you call a leathersmith? What do you call somebody that works leather? Leatherneck? No. So these are just, this is Rick, he's in Maine, so that's got the state of Maine in there. And that sits on your bureau, and that's where you throw your coins and your keys. And we'll just give away one tonight. We'll give away 3 dead cats. and we'll give away one big prize. I'll think of which one we're going to do when we get there. So, Frick, do you want to give away the first dead cat?
Sure.
Who's it going to?
All right. It is going to... Marvin Grant in Ontario, Canada.
Hey, Marvin, dead cat, February, Ontario. Couldn't find something better.
And make sure you email support at
Yes,
RobCosman.com.
yeah, support at RobCosman.com.
It's on the...
Tell
video there.
Gina your the size that you want.
All right, our next dead cat is going to Bob K. in New York.
Hey, Bob. New York's had an easy winter, but you'll still like this because it's even good on a cool spring night.
Okay, and our third one is going to Steve Johnson in Texas.
Hey, Steve. Texas could be a little bit warm, but in the evenings you'll appreciate it. All right, let's give away that. What do we call these? A leather tray. It's a cool little thing, nicely made. Rick has really nice craftsmanship. I'm quite impressed. Let's give this away.
All right,
Who to?
and it's going to David Sanders in Idaho. Congrats.
David,
Yep.
congratulations. Now we got to give away, what are we going to give away? We're either going to give away an oyster knife, a purse, or one of Kevin's plaques. How are we going to determine that?
Why don't they?
Well,
Yeah.
huh?
How about they just pick?
Yes, you pick. Okay.
So
here's
when
your choice.
When
Good.
you email Gina, let her know.
Whoever's name we pick, you have a choice. One of Kim's handbags, one of Jeff's knives, or one of Kevin's plaques, and he'll do it up anything you want on it. You just let us pick. You just let us know. So you just have to email Gina. That's about a $300 prize, by the way.
All right, here we go.
Where's it going, Frick?
It is going to Peter in the USA. He didn't put his last name or where in the USA, but
Peter and... Well, I'm sure
Narrows it down.
there's only a few of them.
yeah. How are we even going to determine which?
Yeah, but you don't have a last name.
Well, we have his email. I don't post.
Oh, you have his
them up.
email?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let him know by email. That it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, thanks, folks. Yeah, how many do we have on tonight?
We were in the upper 600s for
Yeah,
most
well,
of
that's good. That's good. As we get closer to PHP, we'll put a little more pressure on you for your financial support. All the prices run up, but we're going to do
it's
it regardless.
Peter Rosa.
Peter Rosa?
Yeah, he's in the chat.
Hey, Peter. Thank you. Please advertise to your friends and everybody you know what we do at the Purple Heart Project. That's how we find the guys that need it. Guys, girls, whatever. Send them to RobCosman.com, and all the application stuff is on there. The only stipulation is they must have been wounded in combat, whether it's mental wound or physical wound, doesn't matter. We don't distinguish. And they have to either be active duty or have been honorably discharged. So matters not where they live, we'll take care of getting them here if they're selected. And we're still taking applications for, I think, the last two classes, the September class and the October class. So it's not too late to apply for this year. See you in 2 weeks, Frick? Yes? Okay. Have a good night, folks. Stay warm. See you.